Cool. So we are going to start with our rice pilaf. But before we get going on the rice pilaf, we're just going to check in on the beans. So we had the instructions to get a packet of dried black beans, which if you go to the supermarket, I'm pretty sure they're a 375-gram packet. Is that right? Is that what you found?
No, I got mine from the Whole Foods.
Okay, cool. I got mine from the Whole Foods too, actually. But I think they're usually about a 375-gram packet. But the benefit of these recipes is that there's no set amounts that you really need to do. It's all pretty flexible. There's going to be a document with the around about proportions anyway for you. But the main thing with using dried beans is that you always want to rinse them. So first thing is give them a good rinse. The reason why you need to make sure to rinse them is because they're a dried product. They've come off the farm. They've usually been dried somewhere there and stored. They can be dusty. They can have little stones in them and little pieces of grit and dirt as well. So there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that you need to rinse them sometimes. And it has happened before when I was in a restaurant where I didn't wash the beans first and I soaked them. And because we're cooking them straight from the liquid that we're soaking them in, then that means that stuff's going to stay in there. So always make sure you give them a good rinse in a strainer before you put them on to soak. So that's what we've done. We've given them a good rinse and then we've put our beans on to soak for, you can do them like overnight is great. You know, you're going to cook them tomorrow in the nighttime, give them a rinse, put them on to soak. You're always going to put like a good amount of water above whatever amount of beans you've got. Just keep heaps extra because they expand. So they soak up the water and the dried beans expand and grow bigger. The reason why we're going to soak them before trying to cook dried beans is because so much of that softening and absorbing up of the water will just come from the soaking process before we even are adding heat. So they can kind of fill up with as much water as they need before we start cooking. If you start cooking them without soaking, you can, like, it's doable, you can fast track it, but they can just tend to be a bit hard or just take a lot longer or not cook through as like consistently. So there might be like a soft bit on the outside and a hard bit on the inside. So we always want to soak them and overnight is great, but even 2-3 hours should be enough to get them soaked before starting to cook. And so with these black beans especially, I really like to soak them and leave them and start to cook them in the same water because that will keep all of that black stuff. If you soak them in the water and then rinse them, you lose all of that black color and then they're just kind of like a murky, bland brown color instead of this really awesome, rich black color. And that black is naturally going to probably have a lot of antioxidants or a lot of a lot of good stuff in there for you. That's like the brightness of the colors of food is always holding different minerals and that sort of thing. So we keep that in. And once they're soaked and you're ready to start cooking them, you're just going to place them on the heat of the stove nice and high, bring them to the boil, and then turn them down to like a simmer, like a medium high heat, and just let them cook. I had mine on for like just over an hour before I jumped on the call and they were already soft at that point. For this dish, we can't really overcook them. So we're not really worried about them going mushy because that's part of what makes it really yummy. So once they get to a point where you can pick a bean out and it's nice and soft and it's smushing between your teeth, there's no hard bits, you want it to be really nice and creamy, then the cooking part is pretty much done. So you can switch them off, put them aside if that's where they're at now. If they're not soft like that yet, then you can leave them on while we do the rice and get the rice in the oven. Cool, Mickey, that's all good. Awesome. Yeah, so Kashmir, you said your beans are still hard. Cool, so you've got them just simmering away there. Yep, and you got plenty of water in there.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't have enough, but I just topped it up when I noticed it.
So that's the same thing with this one. It like doesn't really matter what heat you've got it on as long as you're watching it. If you've got it higher, then you're at more risk of getting them stuck if the water runs out. But if you keep the lid on, then your water's not going to evaporate so quick, and you can always just add more water. With this, bean dish, you don't have to worry about adding too much water because it's going to make a nice saucy sort of beans at the end, and you can make it kind of as thick or as thin as you like. So again, it's up to you. So we're just going to leave those simmering. I'm going to just pop some of these out. You can see they're all still nice and whole. Even at that stage when they're really cooked, they're going to be more firm than, or like more kind of whole as what you get in the beans in the tin. They can just tend to be a bit mushier. But you can see here that when I'm pressing them, they're just squashing. Now that's really good because that's going to help the rest of the sauce get nice and creamy later. So they're just sitting on super low. I can leave them like that for now. And while they're chilling there, we're going to start the rice pilaf. So, ooh, cool, it's over there. The rice pilaf is, so we can start chopping some onions while we're doing this, but rice pilaf is traditionally like a Middle Eastern sort of North African dish. And it's just a baked rice. And what makes it different to just steaming rice or boiling rice is that we start off with some flavors in the pan. We cook some onions in some oil. We add the rice to the pan and just seal the rice off, get a little bit of color on it, toast it off a little bit. And then we can add all different sorts of flavors, whatever flavors you want. Traditionally, you would use things like cinnamon or cardamom, maybe orange zest, star anise, bay leaves, the sort of fragrant Middle Eastern sort of herbs. But you can do all sorts of flavor variations to this dish. So in the recipe that I'll send out after the class, I'll give you a big list of all the different sort of flavors that you could do with this dish. And we can go through that in a little bit when we get to flavoring it up, but you can kind of take it in all different directions. You could do Mexican flavored rice, you could do Indian sort of flavored rice, and you can pretty much adapt the base recipe to whatever you're feeling inspired by and whatever you've got laying around. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. Maybe Kashmir can kind of pick my brain and we can have some ideas with that.
Cool. I liked your suggestion of turmeric, and I've got turmeric, so I'm definitely going to put that in.
How perfect, because that's what I decided to do today too.
Oh, good. I've got garlic as well, because for me, garlic is a staple.
Yeah, awesome. Totally. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to finely dice one onion. I'm using a brown onion. I don't know.
Can I just ask quickly, sorry, are we meant to have already had our rice cooked by now, or like when you said putting it in the pan? Okay, I didn't think so.
No, nothing's done yet. We're starting from scratch and doing it all together. So it's just the beans we wanted to get on. So I'm using one brown onion. I am going to leave the little root attached. So I've cut it. I've cut the top off, then I've cut it in half, taken the skin off, left the root attached, and I'm going to cut nice and fine with that root still being attached. And that just makes it a bit easier to get that fine dice because it's not, oh, well, it's still slipping a little bit, but because everything's still attached, it's not slipping and sliding around. So usually if you cut that off, then that's everywhere. And then you're trying to cut little pieces, but because we've left the root attached, it's really easy to then just cut the nice small bits. It all stays together, knives aren't slipping around, our fingers aren't slipping around. And just a little tip here, when you're cutting close to your fingers, you can use the claw. So if you use the little claw, the knife's getting close, you're holding that last little piece back a bit further so that your knuckles are kind of protecting you from the knife rather than being like that. So that's just a little tip with cutting, a little bit safer. So you see that that is nice little pieces. It's kind of like, you know, about the size of your rice. And you could do bigger pieces. That's totally up to you. But that's how I do it. It just means that it's a little bit faster to cook, to saute, and to get nice and soft, and to cook really evenly when we do nice small pieces. So that's how I like to do it. again, with the amount of onion, you can do less, you can do more. If you really like onion, you could do 2 onions. It's no big deal. If you don't have onion, you could just use a little bit of garlic. You can use spring onions, but onion's kind of the, the main flavor base of this. If you've got onion and salt and olive oil, then you can make the pilaf. So once your onion is all cut up, we're going to take that over to the stove. We're going to switch views and get cooking. So you also want to just measure out your 2.5 cups of rice. Back up. So I think I just wrote a 500-gram bag. Maybe just, better check for me. 500 grams is 2.5 cups. Yeah. Did you get a 500-gram bag, Kashmir? You just got it from the bulk shop as well?
No, I do have a bag for this one. Mine says 750 bag, so I'll just use 2/3 of it.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, do 2.5 cups.
Okay.
See what that looks like. This will make a big batch. So this will be like, the idea of today as well was to give you some ideas for some bulk meals that you could prep once during the week, and then it could kind of give you a lot of different meal options. So that's what we're going to do. I have to get my mop bucket out of the view. Okay, so I'm going to switch this over and bring this little part. So the pan for this dish, just use any sort of saucepan. It's got some holes on there that you can fit some liquid into. And for me, if you've got one of these heavy cast iron pots, then they're amazing because they come with lids and you can just put it straight in the oven like that. If you don't have anything that can go in the oven with a lid, then you want to use a baking tray of some sort. And something like that you could, or smaller, but just something that's got higher sides and something that you could cover in alfoil. So the key is that when it goes in the oven, it needs to be covered so that the steam gets trapped in. So I'm going to turn on my pan to medium-high heat, not full high, but just a little bit down. Let that start to warm up. So in the ingredients, you'll see that I said you can use olive oil. I would usually use olive oil for this, but today I'm going to use coconut oil just because I feel like doing a turmeric, coconut, sort of bit more Indian flavor, and just to show you that you can kind of use anything. So coconut oil is also really good for you. Both olive oil and coconut oil are the best options for cooking with, really, because when you heat oils, they can, basically the fats change in them and they have a very different range of how they affect the body, but there's a lot of oils and fats like vegetable oils, margarines, all of these sorts of things that when they're heated to a high heat, it affects the structure of the fat and they cause inflammation in the body. So the healthiest fats to cook with are virgin coconut oil. That's the one that you can see goes solid when it's cold. Olive oil, and things like avocado oil. Sunflower oil, rice bran oil, canola oil, they're not healthy options for cooking. Well, they're not really that healthy options at all. So if you want to prioritize your health, it's best to spend whatever you can afford on good quality fats because it's going to make a really big difference. So going to just let our oil heat up a little bit. It's starting to melt. You can see that there's like a nice amount of oil in the pan because that's going to really give us the flavor that we want. You want to make sure that you've got your oven on as well. So that was written on the pre-instructions, but preheating your oven to 200 degrees. So that once this is ready, we can put it straight in. So once that starts to heat up, we're going to put our oil, onions in the oil. You can hear how it's sizzling. That means the oil is coming off. And we're just going to cook these until they start to go translucent, they start to soften, and just before they're starting to get a little bit of color, then we're going to add our rice. Let that get coated in the oil and cook a bit too. So we're just going to let the onions do their thing for a bit. We're not going to add any spices yet because the time it's going to take for the onion to cook would be too much time for the spices. They would overcook, possibly burn. So that's the thing about timing. We just want to cook each ingredient with the right timing, and the size of how it's cut and that sort of thing will affect that too. So you always want to soften your onions, letting them get nice and translucent and soft and colored before you kind of add the next thing. So onions tend to not cook down and like get softer once you add liquid. Has anyone ever noticed that when they've cooked?
Can I ask a quick question, please? If we were going to add in like another vegetable into it, at what point would we do that?
After the onion's soft.
Okay, cool.
So with onion, just kind of like let it do its thing. If you're adding carrots and celery, you know, you could chop that up small and do it at the same time. The trio of carrots, onion, and celery is called Mirepoix in French cooking, and that's kind of like the classic flavor base for that kind of Western style cooking. But you know, I don't think you need it for this sort of thing at all. But other veg, we kind of, depending on what it is, we'd maybe want to add it after the onions are cooked, let it fry off. Or some veg you might be just sort of chopping up and placing in the dish before it goes in the oven. So what veg were you thinking of putting in today?
I've got some zucchini that I had left over that I've sort of put into little cube-sized bits.
Did you get my fridge memo?
Oh, is that what you got too? No way. It was just literally what I had left over.
Yeah, so did I. That's perfect. So yeah, I think we can pop the zucchini in just when it goes in the oven.
Okay.
Because the zucchini would soften a lot, especially if it's small, it would soften a lot once you saute it. So yeah, we can just pop it in the dish when everything else is in there. And this is the other thing too, like you can play with it. I'm going to just go back to onions and give them a stir.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Oh, I want to turn those down. So I'd actually not taken that far, so I wasn't chatting. So now they're starting to get some color on them. I'm going to add the turmeric. Actually, I'm going to add the rice. So actually, I wouldn't have let them go to that much color yet because they're not quite soft enough yet. But that's okay. I've turned them down a little bit. And as long as it's just brown and not going like darker brown or black, that's good. So we're going to add the rice next. Put that all in there. Did you measure out your rice there? Did you have 2.5 cups?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, cool. And once we're ready, we're just going to get it all nice and coated in that oil. And so for the ingredients there, I wrote that it was, I think it was 50 mils of olive oil, using olive oil. But again, that's all just really open. You just want enough oil so that it's nice and coated. I don't know if you can see that. but it's nice and coated in oil. It's all nice and shiny and glossy. Fat carries flavor. So good quality fats that are good for the heart and good for the body. You don't really have to be worried about them. Obviously, different people are on different diets and need different things, but there's a lot of misinformation around fat from the past sort of nutritional guidelines that are all being sort of reconnected these days, and what they're finding is that it's all about the types of fat. So good quality fats like olive oil and coconut oil, you know, there's nothing wrong with them. So it's really important to include them in your diet. So you can see that's all nice and coated. We're going to make a little bit of space there just to add in our spices. I'm going to just pop in a little bit more oil here just to fry off those spices. You see that sizzling. And all I'm adding is turmeric and pepper. If you're using turmeric, it's a really good idea to add some black pepper, ground black pepper, and the salt as well. So got 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I use just 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric. So we're just letting that fry off a little bit. Whatever spices you've got will really benefit from being fried off a little bit. That just brings out the flavor and the aroma. As opposed to, like, you never really want to add ground spices or spices to something with water or liquid in it already. You're just not going to get the flavor. So you really want to add them to the oil, to the fat, so that they can release their flavor. Toasting them, the heat and the fat is what allows the spices to release their flavor. And not just the flavor, also the nutritional content. So especially with turmeric, pairing it with black pepper and with oil, a fat, is actually what makes it so available to the body to give it its anti-inflammatory properties. So we've stirred that all around. Again, you could use more turmeric or less. You could use fresh turmeric or none at all. You could use smoked paprika and give it more of like a Mexican flavor. And now once that is all sort of coated and sealed, we're going to add our water. So the hot pan. And we're going to add 2. Actually, let me just see. We're going to add 3.5 cups of water. So it was 2.5 cups of rice to 3.5 cups of water. And you'll see that that is it's all coming to the boil. We're going to just scrape down the sides so that there's no dry bits of rice just sitting on the sides, because they won't get cooked properly. And this is where you could add in whatever else you want to add in. So I'm going to actually add some pepitas. You could add seeds. You could add beans. So I could right now, if I wanted to, go, okay, cool, I'm going to put black beans in my rice. And then just have like a 1-pot meal with beans in there as well. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to leave it plain, but I'm going to put some pepitas in mine. So chuck them in. They're going to go right through the rice, which will be cool. And I'm going to chuck a zucchini in mine as well. Now, this is going in the oven for 45 minutes to cook. So you don't really have to worry about the veggies being undercooked. They're always going to cook through. So you could do nice chunky bits of veggies. You could do smaller bits of veggies. They're going to go softer or be firmer. And that's all just opportunity for you to learn and experiment and play with how you like to do things. So I'm going to do chunks like that. And they should come out still fairly whole but soft. I'm going to just pop that in there. So I just added cold water. You could use bone broth if you're a meat eater and you made some yummy homemade bone broth, which is really good for your gut. You could cook it in that. You could cook it in veggie stock if you need to, but you don't need to. There's enough flavour in there as it is. So you can see that the water's all hot because there's little bubbles coming out. That's important. But we can turn that off now. And we're just going to cover it and put it in the oven. So I'm going to show you a little trick to cover it. It's a good idea to use baking paper. That's going to help keep the steam in really close to it. And how you make the baking paper fit. If you've just got a rectangle tray, then you're just going to, I'll just clarify that if you didn't have one of these dishes or some sort of saucepan that can go in the oven, then you'd just be using any sort of fry pan like this one, or probably not that one, probably something like that, a pot, and then you would be transferring it into your baking dish. So once it's in your baking dish, that's when you're going to cover it with baking paper and then alfoil on top. And then you would be wanting to make sure that the baking paper would sit down actually on top of the liquid rather than just on the top of the dish. So that is going to make sure that the steam stays right down close to the rice and stays in there and keeps it all nice and moist rather than escaping. So you can trim down your baking paper, or you can just pop it in like that. And if you had foil, then you would be wrapping it over the edges so that it's nice and tight and the steam can't escape. But because I've just got a lid, I'm just going to be putting that on like that. And then that's ready to go in the oven. So we've got our oven preheated to 200 degrees. I'm going to just put it straight in. Careful if you've been cooking with the same pot, it might be hot. Mine wasn't hot, but just be careful. So that's in the oven. I'm going to set a timer. Hey Siri, set a timer for 45 minutes.
Okay, yes. Added.
Okay, so make sure you set a timer for your rice.
So advanced. Sorry, I'm still on alfoil.
Okay, cool.
Just getting there.
That's cool. So while you're on alfoil, just some other ideas flavoring that dish. You could add other spices like cumin or coriander. You could use ground spices or whole spices like cardamom pods or whole cinnamon quills. Cumin seeds whole are quite nice. You wouldn't want to use whole coriander seeds. If you're using coriander, you want to use either ground coriander, or you could use some fresh coriander like stems or roots if you've got them left over. You could add fresh herbs. Bay leaves and orange rind is a really nice combination. You can put nuts in there like macadamia nuts or pecan nuts, or chopped up almonds are really good. You could do one of those nuts with the orange and bay leaf and cinnamon for a really nice Middle Eastern flavor. So basically you can use that as a base. You could do it pretty plain and then use it with whatever you want throughout the week, or you can flavor it up like that and then you could add meat, you could add veggies, you could add nuts, you could add beans, chickpeas, that sort of thing. So it's kind of just a solid base that you can turn into an easy one pot meal. Cool. You're in? Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I was just making sure that everything's going well. I had to transfer mine into the baking dish.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. And you managed to get some baking paper to pop down onto the liquid, so it's nice and close and tucked in. Cool. And foil nice and tucked in around the edges too. Cool. Yeah. So we will get the results when it comes out of the oven, and hopefully it cooks all nicely with the timing. Cool. Next, let's do the flavoring for the black beans. So did you have anything else you were wanting to, I can't remember what I wrote on the instructions about adding to the black beans. I'm just going to be doing some ground onion and some spices. I've got smoked paprika, cumin, dried coriander, ground dried coriander. And I've got some fresh coriander that I just had in the fridge. So I'm going to use the stems and the roots of the fresh coriander. So it's a good, way to use up the stems and the roots of coriander if you wanted to get the leaves for something else as well. Or if you're making, some Mexican food, then you can pop the other bits which are super flavorsome into this dish. How are your beans going cooking wise now? Mine
are pretty much finished. Like I reckon that they're ready to go if yours are ready.
Awesome.
There's still a little bit of is there still a little bit of liquid in there? But that's right, you said? Yeah.
Yeah. We want to keep the liquid in there. So the really good thing about this bean dish is that you can just do as many beans as you want. Put them in the water, let them soak, put them on the pot, put them on the stove, let them cook. Once they're soft, all you got to do is add flavor. So basically we're just getting them cooked, getting to a nice soft stage. And then we're going to use like the same sort of base as what we did for the pasta last time in the first class. And for the rice just then, basically just onion, some good quality oil, the right kind of combination of spices or whatever. And frying them off with the right timing, good seasoning with the right amount of salt. And they turn out really tasty. It's all about the texture. So I'm going to just chop up an onion again. Same thing, like to do this one quite nice and fine. You could do just like long, skinny onions for the beans. That works pretty nicely as well. And other stuff that you could add in as well to the beans. If you wanted to do like a bit more of a bulked up Mexican sort of cook up, you could add mushrooms, you could add capsicums, red or green capsicums in nice strips would be really yummy. But I'm just going to go with the basic sort of flavoring. So just one pretty large onion I had there. Same deal, you can use more onion, you can use less onion. The onion gives the nice sweet flavor, sweet savory flavor when it's cooked down properly, really tasty. It's onion and garlic are both really good for the gut. They're really good prebiotics. So that's food for the good gut bacteria. So it's a really good idea to, fill your meals up with them. So I'm going to jump back over to the other side. I don't have any garlic today, but garlic would also be ideal for this dish. So yeah, I'd add at least a couple of cloves of garlic, chopped up nice and small, half a head, 3 or 4 would be good. I'm going to use a fry pan. So we've got our beans there. I can turn them back on now. High again, and fry pan, I'm going to turn that on like a medium high again as well. And I'm going to put some olive oil in the pan. I'm not measuring it. Onto the end of my bottle here. And again, nice amount of oil so that there's plenty for those onions to cook in. And it's olive oil, so it's good for you. See that hot there. So wait another little second to get that hot. So if you're really into these beans, you could do, you know, double that amount or triple that amount, do a big pot, and then have some takeaway containers or Tupperwares that you could portion it into and chuck them in the freezer so that you can just pull out a tub each week and then have, you know, these healthy beans that you could do with breakfast or with like a Mexican lunch or dinner, make nachos or something like that. So the idea is something that you can make in bulk and then store away, and still something that you can cook from scratch. So you see that oil's heated up a bit now. When we add the onion, you can hear that little sizzle. Like squish them up a little bit. They're at that stage where they have to squish. So pretty much always the same deal. Like if you're using onions in base any recipe, not too high, but nice and sizzling. Get them so that they're nice and soft and translucent before you add them to the liquid. If I add them like this, you end up with nice, soft, squishy beans with hard bits of onion. Have you ever had a pasta sauce or a soup or something that's got like hard onion in it, and it's like not very, you know, not very sweet, not very pleasant? That would be why, because you're adding a liquid to soup. That's called sweating the onions. You're cooking them until the water starts to come out. Sweating, sauteing. I'm just going to chop up my coriander stalks that I've got to add to mine as well. I love coriander. I know a lot of people don't, but I mean, I personally think it's crazy, but that's fine. But just remember that you can use all of the stalks with the coriander. You know, it's not the best to put all the stalks in like a salad, but for something like this, that's what they're perfect for. So you just want to cut them up nice and small and ideally fry them up a little bit again so you get that fragrance. And with coriander, really, really, really important to give it a good wash because it can often have a lot of dirt stuck in it just from the growing process. I'm keeping an eye on those. Down a little bit. You see, I'm adding heaps of coriander stalk here just because that's what I've got and I want to use it all and I don't want to waste it. And I love coriander, so that's going to be really yummy. I'm adding that now because we want to sort of put that down a little bit before we add the spices. You can see that's getting a little bit dry now, so I'm going to just add a little bit more oil. It's the same sort of principles as in the pasta and the rice cakes, and the fat's really where all the flavor comes from. So a good bit of olive oil is nothing to be scared of. And that just helps it all cook nice and evenly too. So by this point, especially if your onion is quite nice and small, you should be able to start to see it start to go quite translucent. So there's nice see-through bits. There's a little bit of golden brown on some pieces. It's starting to go a little bit softer. This is where the flavor comes from. It's from the timing and the caramelization of the onion in the oil here. The browning and the color and the softening is where the sweetness comes from and where the flavor comes from. We just add like the raw onion to the beans. It's just going to taste raw. I don't know what that tastes like that sort of spicy, a bit bitter. Yeah. This is where it turns into the sweetness. You can see they're getting nice and soft there now. Nice, good bit of golden color. It's all nice and even. And there's still a nice bit of oil at the bottom there. So from there, I'm just going to be adding some smoked paprika. Use 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, a tablespoon or 2 teaspoons of dried cumin. And I've got a half teaspoon of Mexican oregano. You can use normal oregano, you can use fresh oregano, you could just not use oregano, or even dried thyme. But mainly like the smoked paprika and the dried cumin and or coriander is like the best base for this. So I'm just gonna pop that all in. Again, just really quick with the spices here. You don't want to be burning them, so you should be able to smell a big waft of yummy spices. You're just going to let them toast off in the oil for like 20-30 seconds. As long as you're smelling that, it's starting to get yummy. You'll see it starting to kind of stick on the bottom, and that's when you want to get it off the heat. And you can add a bit of water to it. That's just going to stop the process from sticking to the pan or overcooking those spices. That's going to get everything stuck off the bottom of the pan, make it way easier to clean than if you just added this to the beans. So you can sort of call that deglazing when you add a liquid to a hot pan or something that you've fried or sauteed off. It's technically called deglazing with them. So then you've got all of this tasty, spicy goodness that you're just going to add to your beans. Another little hot kitchen tip, clean kitchen tip, is spatulas. Get a soft silicone spatula, and you can just make your cleaning so much easier. So you can use it to scrape all your pans and everything, and it's just so much less to clean. That is a chef's trick. Okay. So that should be smelling really yummy. You can see here my beans starting to stick a little bit. That's okay, but we're just going to add a little bit more water. Just enough to kind of get them off the bottom of the pan. And once those flavoring bits are in there, just going to let them cook for another 10-15 minutes. Just to let all those flavors blend together, let those onions fully soften. And we're just going to test all the seasoning, see if it's got enough salt. So you can see that they're nice and saucy, but it's starting to like thicken. Those juices are starting to thicken and it's not watery anymore. And you can help that along by squishing up some of the beans. You have a potato masher, anything like that. So you can just turn that down to like medium low. and just let them simmer away. So I'm going to just let them do their thing. I'm going to have a little taste now, Kashmir, and see how the seasoning is. How are you going, Kashmir? Have you got everything in the pot?
Yeah, I've got my pot's a bit small, but it fits.
Okay, cool.
Do what you got to do, you know.
Gotta do what you gotta do. So why don't you have a taste and see how that's tasting?
I will.
What levels are like.
Mine tastes good.
Okay.
Definitely good, but I think I need a bit of liquid.
Mine tastes good. Did I have salt on there? No, I didn't have salt on there. Did you add salt yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, let's add some salt. We're just gonna do it to taste, so I'm gonna add like at least a teaspoon. That's probably nearly one and a half teaspoons. I forgot, I had the salt on the dish for the rice, but I didn't for the beans. And it's really important actually to not salt beans when you're cooking them from dry at the start. Like when you first put them on the stove, don't put salt in them because there's some sort of chemical reaction that goes on that means that they stay hard if you put salt in at the start of the cooking process. So it is better to season them at the end like this. So I put like 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Cool, that's perfect. Maybe a little bit less. Start with 1 teaspoon of salt. See how that's tasting to you. If it needs a little bit more, you can add. Let me know when you've got a seasoning update, Kashmir.
I've added my salt and my water, which is good. That's definitely better now with the salt. I can tell the difference.
I totally forgot that I had the salt in the rice plate, but not the bean plate with all the other spices. So do not forget salt, guys. Teaspoon of salt should be good. You can play with the seasoning and the salting to your liking. So always start with less and then add a little bit more if you want to. 1.5 teaspoons is a bit too much. I don't usually measure salt, so that's why I probably over seasoned it because it's always just by hand, by feel for me. Yes, Mickey, you're right. It is the magic ingredient. Anyone who thinks they're not a good cook, you're probably just not salting things properly. So see what happens when you just play with adding more salt, like if all of your cooking and salting during the cooking process, not just on your dish at the end, and you'll probably realize that you're actually a really good cook. You know when you are landed, Kashmir.
I'm good. I'm ready.
I wonder how our timer is going. I don't really know how to find that. Hey Siri, what is our timer up to?
I'm sorry, I can't do that here.
Okay, fine.
I think it's about 21 minutes. I think we put it in at about 11 past 7.
Okay, cool. I didn't really see. No, I don't know. Okay, so next we're going to make some was going to see if you guys wanted to make some sauerkraut. I've only got this one person here, so I think I might talk you through it. I don't have the cabbage to do it myself today, but did you grab cabbage?
I did.
Awesome.
I've never bought cabbage before because I don't know, I don't usually cook things with cabbage.
Cabbage is so underrated. Cabbage is actually like a magic superstar vegetable.
Well, we'll see. I'm
Edward
excited.
agrees.
And I've got my lime as well.
Awesome. So it's only a little wedge of cabbage. If we were to make sauerkraut, it would be a very small amount. I feel like, yeah, we should, yeah, let's do it. It'll be great. You don't have the weight of your cabbage, do you? Because it was just bought like that.
No. Oh, it'd be on the receipt. Hold on.
I think it might just be per, it probably just comes per quarter or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Oh,
And do you have kitchen scales?
No, I just go off the vibes typically.
Yeah, cool. So it's all good to go off the vibes. I generally go off the vibes. But when it comes to making sauerkraut, it's awesome to have scales because you can get it, you know, just right.
What percentage of like a quarter would you think?
So I'm just thinking you'd want to do that whole quarter if you were going to make the sauerkraut, and then that's going to be like a couple of weeks till it's ready. And I think we're going to leave it out and just do a little salad instead.
Okay, cool.
And we can, I'm going to still share a little sauerkraut recipe in the, just in the recipe that we send after the show so people can have a little go at it if they want. And there's heaps of different videos and techniques online, that sort of thing. But it's just another awesome thing that you can have on hand and have in the pantry. But we'll just keep it simple for today and do a nice little salad. So got cabbage, you've got lime. Do you have anything else hanging around that you could throw in a salad?
I've got lots of things. I've got capsicum.
Great.
I've got some other sort of more just general mixed leaves.
Great. You have a red onion? Did you have, oh, cucumber's great. Let's do cucumber, capsicum. Do you have a red onion?
Do I have what, sorry?
A red onion or spring onions?
No, I don't have that, sorry.
Okay, that's cool.
I've got some avocado.
Oh, yeah.
Would that be probably better just to more sort of like put on the other stuff at the end?
Yeah, you could just mash up the avocado with some lime. So again, I left this just super open, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to make a really yummy salad with cabbage, like a little slaw. You know, people think of coleslaw as, you know, cabbage, carrot. What else goes in traditional coleslaw? I don't know, mayonnaise, but it's like creamy and kind of sweet, and it always tastes kind of old. I don't know. It's not usually in my books like the freshest, healthiest salad option, but I love making, I kind of just taken the coal off it and just call it slaw. And it's good because it's really cheap. Cabbage is a really cheap vegetable. You can get a lot of it for not much money. And another great thing about it is that you can cook it in lots of different ways, or you can eat it raw, or you can ferment it and make sauerkraut. So cabbage is awesome. I've just got like a tiny little bit of cabbage that was left over in my fridge. All I'm going to do for this salad is, again, it's just about showing you like how simple it can be and just whatever's lying around. Have a little bit of cabbage. I'm going to use a little bit of red onion. I'm going to use some of those coriander leaves that I had left over. And I just picked up some local sunflower sprouts. So that's going to be my salad. I would use lime. I don't have it today, so I'll use something else, but ideally lime and some olive oil would be a really easy, yummy dressing. So just to show you how simple it is, take off the core of your cabbage and just choose a direction where you can cut some nice, long, thin slices. I usually like to do as fine as I kind of can in nice, long, thin bits. And just shredding that there. Taking care of your fingers. Nice small fine bits. So if you're going to be making sauerkraut, which is the fermented cabbage, that's all you're going to need to do to prepare it. Cut it up nice and fine like that. If you had like a mandolin, like a shredder, you can use those too. They're a bit dangerous though, so you need to be really careful. Again, you can use the claw or you can use the palm of your hand when you get closer to that. But because it's a harder kind of vegetable, you do want to have it nice and fine if you're going to eat it raw in a salad. Otherwise, it's just going to be too hard and crunchy. So this is really where the way you cut it, the size, affects the texture and therefore how enjoyable it's going to be to eat if you are going to be using cabbage. So you could chuck cabbage into the baked rice as well. But if I was chucking the baked rice, maybe I'd do a little bit chunkier strips. Or I could just do nice big chunky wedges. Pop that into the liquid. And then when that comes out after 45 minutes, that's going to be all nice and soft. So just a little bit of that shredded cabbage in my little bowl. Put that there. I'm going to pick that coriander off the main big stalks, not picking off all the stalks, but best way to do that is just to hold the big stalk, pull off the bottom leaves, and then I usually just grab from the top, pluck that off. So I'm not picking every bit off there, just taking off like the chunky ones. You can leave them whole, you can chop them, do whatever you want. I'm going to do a small chop. You don't need coriander. I'm going to put a pinch of sprouts in mine too. So you could use other types of sprouts as well. You could sprout your own sprouts. It's really, really easy to sprout alfalfa sprouts or sprouts from other seeds.
Me and my mum do that all the time with alfalfa sprouts. It's so good.
Yeah, so it's a really good way to get extra greenery, extra healthy, fresh, alive vegetables into your diet, especially if you don't have so much money to buy fresh leafy greens. You can sprout things at home really simply. So to do that, you could just buy alfalfa seeds from like your bulk food shop and you just put them in a jar. You soak them for a little, or you rinse them with water, and you just get like some sort of mesh to go on the top or cloth, like a chucks or something like that. Ideally a mesh sort of curtain cloth or something is the best, or fly screen. Pop it around the top of the jar and pop a rubber band around it. And literally all you need to do is have like a tablespoon of seeds in the bottom, probably not even a tablespoon, a teaspoon in a jar like that. Get them wet, rinse them, put the little cover on top, and you sit them upside down like that on your dish sink, somewhere there to drain, leaving the little wet sprouts in there. And you just rinse it like 3 times a day, put some water in, give it a little rinse, and leave it out to dry. You can sit it up on your windowsill or something like that. And in a couple of days, you're going to have a whole jar full of fresh alfalfa sprouts. So it's really cost effective. You can sprout all different things. So jump on YouTube and have a look at sprouting if you want to get into another way that you can, get more fresh, healthy greens into your diet with not much money. And the other really amazing thing about sprouts, why they're so healthy, is because it's like all of the nutrients that's contained in the little seed, you're getting heaps of those. Like each sprout has got like all of that little baby plant minerals starting in there. So they're really high in nutrient contents. I'm going to add a little bit of red onion. I like to cut the onions from bottom to top. I just feel like it's nicer than the other way. And I'm going to do that really nice and fine, and just a little bit. See, that's really nice and fine. Again, that affects the flavor, so you're not like overwhelmed with a big bite of onion. Something nice and fine like that. So you could add anything to your slaw. You could add some grated cabbage. You could add spring onions. You could add parsley, Kashmir might be adding some really finely sliced red capsicum and maybe some really finely sliced cucumber.
It's true.
You could just add avo straight in there. You can put corn in there and make it like a corn slaw, which is really yum, especially with Mexican things. You could use pretty much any other leafy greens that you want to shred up fine. So you can even use silver beet or rainbow chard that you typically wouldn't eat raw, but if you cut it up nice and fine, it's really yummy. So that's literally all I've got there for a little salad. I'm just going to toss that through. That's really just to show you how you can have a slaw that's a bit fresher, healthier. You know, you probably used to seeing this style of thing on like, you know, the cool burger shops these days. I'll have like a, you know, chicken burger with slaw. It's not like your creamy old sweet coleslaw. It's like a really fresh, zesty slaw like this. And so I would literally just season that with a squeeze of lime or lemon, a little bit of salt and a little bit of olive oil. And pepper if you want. So I'm just going to put a little pinch of salt. Don't forget to salt your salads as well. Everything wants a little bit of salt, a little drizzle of olive oil. I don't have lemon or lime, but I have some grapefruit, so I'm going to use that. I'm just going to use some grapefruit. I love grapefruit. A lot of people don't. So that's how easy it is to dress a salad. You don't need to buy dressings in a bottle. They usually are filled with lots of random stuff. It's not really that fresh. They don't have that much flavor because they've been on the shelf for ages. And at the end of the day, it costs you money that it's not even going to be better than just doing something really simple and easy like that. If you have raw apple cider vinegar, that's also really awesome for a salad dressing. You don't need to like make up a dressing. It's literally just a dash of apple cider vinegar, dash of olive oil, pinch of salt. That's it. So super easy. Give it a toss around. You can taste it, see if you want some more salt, see if you want some more acid, see if you want some more oil. And again, doing stuff like that to taste yourself from scratch rather than buying something in a bottle is going to be how you learn to season things the way that tastes good for you, rather than just pouring it. You're like, oh, what does it need? Oh, it needs a bit more tang. I'll add some more lemon or lime. Oh, it needs a bit more salt. I'll add some more salt. Nah, I think it could have a bit more fat. We'll add some more oil. Cool. So that's a nice little healthy garnish to go with. And I'm going to turn my beans off. You can see it's all nice and thick now. You'll notice, like, once it's getting creamy like this, it's easier for it to stick to the bottom. So that's why I just want to keep it on nice and low, medium low, especially if you're using gas. And you should be able to see that they're nice and thick and creamy and like saucy. Before we added all the onions and stuff, and before they got to that point of breaking down, it was more like black beans in liquid, but now it's like creamy, saucy black beans. So they're totally ready. And you let them cool down a little bit. Ideally, well, it depends. If you think you're going to eat that for the whole week, sweet. That's not a huge batch, so I probably would just keep that, but you could do double that size and then let them cool down a bit, tub them up into containers, freeze some, and then use that for different meals. So maybe we'll talk for the next little bit while we're waiting for the rice to finish, just about the different ways we could use these beans or this base of beans. Why don't you give me an update when you're ready on your beans, Kashmir?
My beans are good. They're pretty saucy as well.
Great. And have you had another taste of them?
Yeah, they taste good. I'm just giving them a few more minutes because I feel like they could go for a few more minutes.
Yeah, mine were a bit further along than yours were, so that's perfect. Yeah. So just a note on like salting things that are on stove and cooking. If you were to have salted the beans when it had a lot more liquid and then tasted them at that point, and then you've reduced it a lot, then it's going to be saltier, the end result. So that's just what you want to be mindful of, not cooking them down too much or not seasoning them to that kind of higher salt level when there's heaps of liquid, but just getting to that sort of medium amount and remembering that you can always add more salt later, but you can't take it away.
Cool. I'm so excited to eat. I'm hungry making all this.
Yay. I don't know how to find the time.
It's 7:49.
Okay.
So I'd say we have about 6 minutes left on the.
Yeah, I'm just relying on Siri to do her thing. I haven't ever done that on my laptop.
I'm sorry, I can't do that here.
She's not a fan.
Go away, Siri, it's fine. Cool. So these black beans, I'm going to tell you about all the different ways I use them. On toast, like just cook some sourdough, put some toast in there, beans on toast. You could have it just like that. You could fry an egg on it. You could fry some tempeh or some tofu. You don't really need to, there's a lot of beans in there, but you could have them with bacon and eggs. You could cook an egg in them, like a shakshuka, like a baked eggs kind of dish. So put them in a little saucepan. You'd want to add a little bit more liquid, crack an egg in there, put a little lid over, let it cook through. So all sorts of breakfast options. Then can turn into like tacos, burritos, all your awesome little Mexican flavored things. So just a really good way to bulk out any sort of Mexican dish like that. But a really good, easy way is to just do like rice bowls. So like a Mexican bowl style thing. So that's just a good way of being able to use whatever you've got. So maybe you don't have rice, you can't do the baked rice, but you've got quinoa. You could just put some quinoa on to cook, and then you could top your quinoa bowl with these tasty beans, and then look in the fridge and see what you've got. If you've got some salad stuff, maybe you could make up this little slaw. If you've got an avo, just chuck an avo in there with some lime, maybe some cherry tomatoes, maybe some herbs, maybe some cheese, some yogurt, or some dairy-free cheese or dairy-free yogurt. If you have meat, you could just cook that up as well. So it's just putting little things together, not having to follow like a set thing. But really awesome on nachos. And yeah, you could even, turn it into a bit of a soup base, lengthen it out with some more water and have it as a soup with some crunchy bread. You could blend it and have this like Mexican black bean soup with a dollop of yogurt and crunchy bread on the side. So it's pretty open.
Yummy. I like the idea of having it with the eggs because I've got so many eggs at the moment. I've got 3 different type of bird eggs at the moment. I've got chicken, quail, and duck at the moment.
Oh, one of every animal.
The quail eggs are good, but they're so small that you sort of have to equal 3 eggs to 1 chicken egg.
Yeah, totally. Fried quail eggs would be so cute.
I know. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I've been having like 3 little quail eggs on a piece of toast.
So cute. Yeah. So Yeah, and like you can use other kinds of beans. You could do the same with borlotti beans or cannellini beans, but basically that's just showing you sort of the formula. Like you can, rinse them, soak them, because they're dry and you're doing it in bulk. You can, get a lot more value for money than buying the canned beans by doing this in bulk. And it means you might be more likely to be able to afford the organic version than the standard or whatever if you want to. But basically, it's just the volume and the freshness. It does taste better and the consistency is better. But basically, it's just the formula. So showing you how to rinse, cook them from scratch, get them to be a nice consistency. A few key tips there around the washing, the soaking, not salting them at the start because that will keep them too hard. And yeah, if you're wanting to make some sort of saucy bean dish like this, then you're just cooking them in the liquid and then adding your flavors, frying it up and adding it into the pan. And again, just that flexibility with the flavors that you're adding. It's all pretty open. Cool. Well,
I'm just cleaning up. My kitchen's very messy.
good thinking.
I've got all this purple on my stove because I put a lid on the beans when they were cooking.
And they overflow. Yeah.
There's just this purple liquid everywhere. It was kind of pretty, but also annoying.
Yeah, they really do like to do that. So try and use as big of a pot as you've got, or just like a pot with a lot of extra room for the beans. It just makes things a bit easier.
Will do. Sorry, I'm just tending to the beans. Mine are definitely ready now.
Okay, cool. I think the recording going to get sent out, or does it just go onto the website, Anita?
We will send it out to you guys.
Cool.
Yeah, and then I think we'll upload it to the website at some point.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to send Anita a bit of a recipe card thing for this as well. So you've got it written as well with a few more ideas for the different flavor combos you could do. Would love to hear back from anyone if you cook this tomorrow and you experiment with any other sort of flavors or veggies or other additions you make. You could add meat and other veggies to your rice as well. So I'd love to hear about that. If you're on Instagram, you can jump on Instagram and tag me at Cooked and Cultured. We'll put that in the email as well. That would be cool. I'm just wondering if my alarm is actually going to work.
It should be almost time for it.
Okay. You're on time. I don't trust.
Yeah, I just knew that it was 7:11 when we put it on.
Okay. Yeah, it should be any second. Wait for Siri. Okay, I'm trusting Siri. Does anyone have any questions? Everyone who is quiet and hiding back there? And yeah, everyone have a look and jump on the link in the chat there from Anita to register for the next one as well.
I'm stalking your Instagram. It's got lots of yummy looking things on it.
Yeah, there's heaps of stuff on Instagram. I've got a few more. I've got a couple of recipes on the little highlights reel of Instagram, like a frittata and that sort of thing you can have a look at. Albert, was it Albert who was under Z? What are we going to do for the next one? I don't know yet. What do you want to do? I was thinking maybe dal or it's another beanie thing. It's going to be, oh yeah, I'll do it here. It's going to be, Anita, what's the week called that the next one's in? I've forgotten.
Fusion Festival.
Fusion festival, so like multicultural. So I've already shown you like my heritage, the Italian, the pasta last week, and then this is, you know, a bit of everything. This is all a bit of fusion.
Just quickly on that note of Fusion Festival, they've got a cooking competition running at the moment where you can win an Amazon voucher.
Cool, guys. Did you hear that? Who's going to enter the cooking competition?
What are the guidelines for it?
I think you just need to share I might send you guys a link. That would be.
Yeah, cool.
You just share a favorite recipe that like represents your culture or your family or something like that. And then you can go in the draw to win. And then we're also running a kind of the same competition for you to win like a Coles voucher as well. So you've got multiple chances to just win, and you could take a photo of something you cook.
There you go.
Normally.
Awesome. I don't really have any culture. I'm just, you know.
I think that inspires you.
Just generic. Australian.
Generic Aussie.
Still culture has me. Still got something.
Yeah, I'll think of something that my mum's made and try to make that.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not trusting Siri.
Yeah, I think it's a bit past when Siri was.
Yeah, I don't even know how to find it on here. It's completely upside down. Okay. Well, make sure you set a timer when you don't have all of your tech devices on Zoom. That might be a bit easier, but I had everything connected, so. But basically 45 minutes is what you want for the rice in there. And once it comes out of the oven, it's a good idea to let it sort of rest for 5 minutes or something to continue steaming. Okay, I'm going to leave on the edge and pull it out. And I'm going to wait a couple of minutes just to let that steam settle down. Emoji's not wearing masks. There are mask emojis. There's always been mask emojis, hasn't there? They were prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they knew what was coming. Cool. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the other things you can do with this rice. So it's good to do a big batch like this because then you can pop it in the fridge. So you want to let it cool down before it goes in the fridge. But what's really awesome about it, it is so yum reheated. It's actually better reheated even than when it's fresh. So you can pop it in the fridge. It'll last about a week as long as you've cooled it down properly. Let it cool a bit outside before you pop it in the fridge. And when you put it in the fridge, make sure you don't have a lid on it if it's not fully cool yet. So cool it without the lid and then place a lid on top once it's cold. And that's the same with all food. So covering hot food up with a lid before it goes in the fridge is going to mean it's going to take longer to cool down. And that means that the chance of bacteria growing is higher because it's staying warmer for longer. So you want to leave the lid off so that it can come down to the fridge temperature as quick as possible. And then once it's cool, put the lid on. The other thing that happens is the condensation that gets created on the lid can also be where mold can form and make it easier for it to form mold. So just a little tip for the health and safety side of leftovers and, cooking things in bulk. It's really important. And storing things smaller also helps to speed that process of cooling down as well. So you wouldn't want to put the whole metal pot in the fridge. So you got the hot pot, you got the big amount of beans. You want to put that into little containers and let that cool down. So with the rice, a really good way to reheat it is to pop it on a tray with a little bit of extra olive oil and pop it in the oven. And you can just put it on like 200 degrees, 180, 200, and heat it up. And it gets this really nice, crunchy, crispy topping where all that yummy, oily goodness sort of crunches up, which is really good. We can just reheat it in a fry pan or microwave if that's what you got. But it's really, really good in the oven, especially if you've got like nuts or seeds or something in it, and then that crisps up. It's really yummy. And yeah, you can add all your veg, you know, extra meat even, chickpeas, nuts, whatever you want to bulk it up, add the sort of fiber, protein, that sort of thing to make it like one complete dish that then you can just, you know, take for cold lunch boxes or heat up again. Or you can keep it as the plain base rice and then use that throughout the week for bowls, just adding other stuff on top of it. Or use it to go with other meals. Or use it for a brekkie, do like a fried rice with an egg chucked in, that sort of thing. You can really use it for anything. All right, let's see how it's going under there. Let that steam come out. Let's have a look at it there. You can see it's absorbed all the liquid. How are we going? Let's swap that in. You can see my nice chunky pieces of zucchini are there. All the liquid's being absorbed down to the bottom. If we go under there, just a tiny bit of liquid there. So if we got our time right, we would just want to leave that on there for another 5 or 10 minutes or something. That steaming process just continues to cook it. But you can see it's all, the rice isn't clumpy or gooey. It's like nice and separate, falls apart. And it's all coated in yummy flavoring. And it should taste pretty good. It's not just like bland, boring, gooey rice. How's yours?
It's good. Mine's really good. It's definitely ready. And like you said, the rice is all separated, which is good. Sometimes I have problems with cooking rice and it gets a little bit gluggy. And I think when I go to like Indian restaurants and their rice is so perfect, I'm like, how do you do that every time?
Yeah. So yeah, can we have a look at yours? Can you show us?
I can try. Oh, here we go. There's mine.
Dang, that looks beautiful.
Thank you.
Very cool. So yeah, that's like, you know, the amazing thing about this dish is that look at that, like brown rice, all nice and separate. It's not clumpy and claggy like it can often be. And yeah, you can just chuck whatever you want in it. It's great. So I'm just going to mix all that up. So I've got all the seeds, the veg all stirred through. And let's serve up a bowl of what we created, Kashmir.
I'm just giving mine a little stir as well. It seems like the rice has, not the rice, the onion has sort of risen to the top. Is that normal?
And it just floats. That's just what it does. So that's normal. But yeah, that's why you want to give it just a little bit. Settle down. I've got a few too many utensils over here, as you can see, guys. Look at my other thing. So I'm just going to serve some into my bowl here with my slaw. And a little bit of my beans. Healthy, vegan, it could totally be here if you wanted to add meat, you could top it with cheese, with yogurt. I might pop a dog with yogurt on mine because I love yogurt. It's good probiotics as well. We got lots of fiber from the nice raw veggies. The raw veggies will give you a lot of enzymes. Enzymes are only really present in raw food, so it's really important to have some raw food here and there. You've got your protein in your beans. You've got protein and fiber in your seeds as well. A lot of other micronutrients, minerals in the seeds and beans. And some extra fiber from brown rice rather than the normal white rice. If you're up in the Northern Rivers and you go to one of our bulk shops, you can get rice that's grown in the Northern Rivers, which is pretty amazing, good for the environment, eating food that's close. Oh, that's cool. And yeah, you can play with that, put whatever you want in it. Don't forget to turn your oven off.